Hello and welcome. It's time once again for Factory Talk, and this week we are talking to Total Control Pro Limited, which is a company based not too far away from us, MTD, in Northampton, and they offer production tracking systems to help with the planning and the productivity processes with a variety of industries. To explain more, we are joined by the company's strategic director, Dolores Sanders. Dolores, thank you very much indeed for being on Factory Talk. Tell us more about the company then and what it does.
So Total Control Pro developed actually out of a piece of software developed for the windows and doors industry. So we are manufacturing technology designed, we say, by manufacturers for manufacturers. My background is, from an early ages in manufacturing. And we identified a need for our earlier customers just to understand what was happening on the shop floor. There was lots of technology to help various other structures of the companies, but actually the shop floor often occurred as a bit of a black hole when it came to productivity and production. So we determined to start to develop a piece of software to help visualize the shop floor, bring that information to the right people at the right time, in real time. And that was 13 years ago. We've built that out to become a cloud-based software as a service system to really start to produce the technology that's best fit for manufacturing today.
So you started this pretty much from nothing. It's a brand new invention, and your customers then, you don't sell to Joe Public as stuff, as you sell to industry, to manufacturers.
Yes, very much so. So whether that's a B2C manufacturer or someone doing manufacturing on demand, all the way through to sort of 15 tier of an OEM supply chain, and then all the way up to some of the much larger OEMs as well.
Right. I was going to talk about the sort of size companies you deal with actually a bit later on, but as it's come up, let's talk about that now. What size companies do you deal with? Is it literally, is it a one-man band? Are we talking small partnerships, or are we talking the huge multinationals?
Well, we started with a commitment to the SME marketplace, mostly because there are some high ticket price software systems that are already engaged at the higher multinational level. And we really knew that the sort of technology available was not accessible or affordable for the smaller companies, and that was our aim, is to provide that. Interestingly, though, as we've developed our platform, developed our service, moved more cloud-based, we have a lot of inquiries from the larger organisations. We've had deployments for Siemens, Bombardier, some very large organisations, often because they're made up of a conglomeration of small manufacturing plants, and they all have the same problems. How to visualise the shop floor, how to improve productivity, how to engage automation and people, and bring that data to somewhere that it's needed. So, in all honesty, we tend to reach across the industries and across the sizes.
Talk to me about digitisation then. Tell me what it is, what it does, what your role is with digitisation, which is a word I never actually say correctly. So over to you.
No, that's great. I hope not to say it too often either, because I tend to get tongue-tied. But essentially, it's where we've relied on manual-based entry of information and paper-based collection systems, or manual reporting and recording of functions, actually bringing that into a digital arena. Across not just manufacturing, it's the removal of paper off the shop floor. It's the provision of digital plans, digital quality assistance and assurance information, which enables people to access it more effectively. Something that's very relevant now: access it remotely rather than a filing cabinet full of bits of information. But it can also apply to anything that can be encoded and shared. Your control of your machines, recipe details for coatings or food goods. How that information, which traditionally would have been inputted in a different way, can be digitized and automated through the process. We also see more and more digitisation from the shopping process. So your e-commerce to manufacturing, where you have print on demand or manufacture on demand systems where they've got an e-commerce site, the order is created, linked to a design, sent down to a production plant, and then outputted to a physical product. Until it becomes that physical product, everything else is digitized.
Now, one of the things that crops up quite regularly on Factory Talk is manufacturers, they get quite upset about the fact that the UK is so far down the league when it comes to adoption, introduction of robotics and automation. Are we the same with digitisation, or are we better with that?
We are getting better. The adoption conversation is really key. I mean, I do think that one of the challenges in the UK is we've had a lot of funding and a lot of initiatives based around innovation and new proof of concept ideas. So we have things like the manufacturing catapults and the digital catapults, etc., that are also all designed around new concepts and new proof of concept, but not a lot so much to actually help the adoption conversation. And I must admit, here in the UK, we are still a little more dependent on longevity of service or experience than we are on learning. And we're more interested in preserving that machine in the corner that we've had for 20 years and we're going to get another good 20 years out of it than actually going, is that the best investment, or can we put resources towards ensuring we are using the best practice in everything that we do and investing in the future?
Is it difficult then to persuade companies to spend that money, to put that investment in, when, as you say, the payback might not come for quite a few years?
Yes. I think now the appetite for long-term kind of investment with not a return for 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line is significantly diminished. But is it difficult? What's coming through are companies like ours where we're really focused on giving you quick wins. People have been talking about the digital revolution for a long time, and we are very much committed to it being an evolution. Let's show you how to make quick wins now, an immediate return on investment. The deployment of our system, you get 15% increase in productivity within the first 4 weeks simply by getting a lot of your paper-based and manual-based processes out to the shop floor and helping people on the shop floor do what they need to do better. If you start to create that kind of result quickly, then the opportunity to start to look at the longer term investment plans and the longer term opportunities can come through. So it's very much we focus on how can we be part of your operational expenditure and how can we give you those quick wins. And there are more companies like myself, like Total Control Pro, coming through offering the kind of solutions that enable companies to do that, especially manufacturers.
Is one of the problems that in the past companies perhaps haven't been best advised on the sort of systems that they should take, and they've perhaps become, I don't know, a bit jaded, a bit wary of adopting these new systems because of that?
I think, there's been a bit of a propensity, and I'll put my hand on my heart and say us in the tech industry have not served manufacturers particularly well. And we've had become a little bit complacent. It was only 2 years ago at the Digital Manufacturing Show I came across an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System seller, who said, why on earth would you invest in a SaaS-based software when you can buy it now and own it for 5 years? And I was looking and going, what do you own? Because ultimately you don't buy software. Software is continually improving. If you buy it like a box that's going to sit in the corner and serve you, it just isn't going to do that. And also the long term it takes to actually deliver. Most ERP systems, you're talking 6 to 12 months from initial inquiry to design to deployment till you've got something sort of working. And that's just too long. I think we haven't best served manufacturers, and there are a lot of manufacturers who've been burnt or just lost in the quagmire of trying to deploy a new system and given up.
How do you overcome that then when you go to, because if you've got your fingers burnt, then it's understandable that you're reluctant to, I'm mixing all the metaphors here, but you're reluctant to dip your toe back into the water, aren't you?
Yeah, just jump right in. You're absolutely right. And but I do think the challenge that's now meeting the challenges that manufacturers have had with more remote deployment, with more of their non-essential staff working away from the factory floor, and also the need to manage staff and machines around the factory floor more effectively. The appetite for digitisation is definitely there now. And so what the market have to do is enable those companies to deploy easily in small areas and sort of land and expand and grow that out. So it isn't such a, it's the elephant analogy, pick it off bit by bit rather than try and do it all at once.
You mentioned in passing SaaS. Well, I wanted to talk more about that. Tell us more about it.
Well, essentially, software as a service is such that you pay a monthly license or an annual license for a piece of software designed to, for example, in our sense, provide productivity improvements, inventory management, and track and trace systems. As part of that contract, the software company agreed to provide you with that on a cloud-based system so that it can be managed very easily. There's no server requirements. It's actually higher security because you have services like, we use Amazon Web Services, who are very, very high levels of security and backup and extra resource. So the company doesn't have to have anyone looking after the server on their premises or anything else. But the payback for the monthly license is you get the new upgrades when there's another manufacturer finds a new way of doing something, brings that to us, that upgrade is applied to our whole product line. So you learn and you get the benefits of all of the different manufacturers playing into the software so that it improves with you on a month-by-month basis. It's not just a static piece of tech. The idea being you can start to future-proof and move forward and learn as by benchmarking across multiple manufacturers, you can start to bring those productivity improvements. That's what SaaS opens up to me. In reality, it's just a license for a server that's up in the cloud that we maintain that way because it's easier than doing it on-prem. But the opportunity to stay in pace with development. You talked about, the UK being behind. It's because we still have this castle mentality. This is my machine. This is my factory. This is my castle. Whereas actually, when we share best practice and have open source software that can communicate with each other, we have far more opportunity to be truly competitive in a global world market.
Oh, sharing best practice. Do we?
Well, we're getting there. I mean, this sort of thing that you're doing right now, the Factory Now program, the opportunity to collaborate, to learn from each other, to see what's being done elsewhere. It's the only way we can really make the improvements we need now. We have got to shortcut. I had someone from Microsoft talk to me about the UK used to be slightly behind the curve. We now are so far behind, it looks like a straight line. But there is a curve ahead. And for us to actually, to talk Northampton motorsport, for us to actually navigate that curve effectively, we need that navigator calling out when to turn, when to do things. And by collaborations such as this, more manufacturers talking with each other, I think it's the only way we're going to do it.
I'm so glad you said that and mentioned Factory Now, because historically, I suppose you can understand why industry manufacturers have always been a little bit secretive. But really, moving forward, sharing best practices, collaboration, it's got to be win-win, hasn't it?
I would say so. I mean, you see the collaboration, especially, again, the motorsports or the large manufacturers. In the Midlands here, we know that the JLR are a major investor in the supply chain. And so the smaller engineers get connected all the way through. And that's a really, really big win for the area. And right now, there are people struggling because of that link up as well. But we've seen it in verticals, but what we really need to understand and start to share is in the broader horizontals across manufacturing, because then you really see, if you bring automation and robotics into pharmaceuticals, I mean, we can improve productivity there, but that can also serve food and drink and food and beverage. They're very, very similar industries, and then also into chemical automation. That learning from those across those, I think, is really key.
Dolores, we're nearly out of time, but one thing I just want to touch on is I wonder what we would have been talking about 6 months ago, because the last 6 months have seen such a dramatic change in everyone's life, whether it be personal or professional. How do you think COVID has affected, particularly looking at your industry and the industry in general, and how do you think it's going to change things moving forward?
So for us, as a company, we were 6 months ago, we were starting a research and development project to bring our manufacturing platform combined, so to start to future-proof our platform. We've actually brought that forward. We were due to launch Q2 next year. We're launching in the beginning of September this year. So for us, that time to focus on our product and really get it to where we wanted to has actually been really beneficial. We've also been engaged with a number of, so across our customer base, I would say 80% have responded well. They already had obviously some digitisation in place and they've responded well to the challenges. 20% not so well, some unfortunately we've lost. But those that had systems that they could utilise and pivot quickly have put new lines in place, have responded to market demands, have started to look at new supply chains, have reduced work in progress and the value on the shop floor by improving their inventory management and bringing the right goods to the right things at the right time, given resources were struggling. So for us, actually, we're very positive. We've seen areas across, I've just spent the last 2 weeks on a virtual exhibition, and we've seen a lot of people talking about staff furloughed, loss of industry, the aerospace, all of that. And we're in danger of talking ourselves into a worse recession than I think we are at. We've got to find the wins. We've got to move quickly. We've got to be agile. And I think we have the opportunity to do that. And I hope, I trust that we will do that. Rather than sort of sit there, talk about what it used to be like and oh woe is me, really sort of take the opportunities of onshoring, take the opportunities of more control of our manufacturing process, utilising our resources better, but also slightly more flexible working practices. And there are new demands, there's a new market, there are new things happening, and British manufacturing has been pretty good at responding to those in the past. And I think we are definitely starting to see that recovery.
Dolores, that's brilliant. So good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Factory Talk this week. Dolores Sanders there. Thank you. That's it for the show for this week. We'll be back, of course, with another Factory Talk shortly. And if you want to catch up on any of the previous editions, they're all available for you on MTD MFG. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.